Hitman is a game best known, at least on my channel, as a game that allows you to orchestrate hilariously tragic scenarios that more or less always result in an absolute carnival of pain for everyone involved most of the time, even including me. But what if, in some alternate universe, Agent 47 had a semi-life-changing experience that made him turn away from a life of killing people and to a life of, I don't know, making other people kill other people for you, or of them just accidentally offing themselves? Is it possible to beat Hitman 2 in its entirety without ever killing anyone yourself? Well, keep watching to find out. Before we get started, I like to establish the rules of this Kill Nobody challenge, and they are as follows. The loadout on every single mission will be the same. No gun, 100 coins, and 100 bananas. Agent 47 is not allowed to directly kill anybody in any way whatsoever, and setting up accidents and disabling safeguards such as loosening a gas canister or puncturing an oil drum is acceptable as long as the death itself is caused by a poor life decision on the target's behalf, i.e. smoking a cancer stick in a puddle of gasoline. Alright, that's it. Let's roll. So, my journey at becoming the nicest guy in the world for the second time began with me ankle deep in the New Zealand Sea, because I like my shoes and socks nice and soggy. My mission was to infiltrate the Shadow client's beautiful seaside mansion, which she inherited from the nice family she killed that lived there before her. Simply put, she was the worst and needed to die. But I wasn't allowed to directly have anything to do with it because I am the nicest hitman ever. As soon as I got to the poolside entrance, I picked up the screwdriver on the floor and threw it with what I thought was bullet-like velocity. But apparently it wasn't, because the pot didn't even crack. I was going to need to find another way in because I just wasn't getting that key without a gun, which, by the way, are against my religion. Today, climbing up rainwater drainage pipes, however, is a-okay. So I did it. And then I hopped onto the balcony and straight into the bathroom window. I guess breaking and entering is okay too. Then inside the target's bedroom, there was a squeaky bird toy on the floor next to her bed. I guess she was kinky like that, and I was uncomfortable. Nevertheless, I searched the house high and low looking for viable accidents that I could potentially assist in the orchestration of. Unfortunately, however, I came up emptier than an elephant's bowels after his morning coffee. Hacking the mainframe, however, seemed like a good idea, but the password wasn't password, and that was the extent of my puzzle-solving skills. But my OCD came in clutch and led me to a secret gangbang room full of weapons which I couldn't use, and a USB dingle-dongle that I could use to bypass the password on the mainframe. Just as I was getting to the good bits, however, my target came home with her harem of boy toys, and I knew it was time to get swifty. I slipped downstairs and prepared to separate the target from her personal stripper. aka bodyguard, who came in to turn off the tap, and I came in to turn off his consciousness. Now, running around the house as a 6-foot-something man in a bright white suit and practically being invisible to everyone at point-blank range was a treat. So I spent a bit of time just running around the house like an asshole, taking it all in. I then realized that I could lure the target's boyfriend into the curtains under the stairs with a greedy little coin. I also realized that I could glitch him out and get his head stuck in the wall, so I ended up spending more time than I probably should have doing that over and over again. When I was done, eventually, I finally decided to hide him properly. I then zipped into the garage to pick up the only propane tank that I knew the location of on this level. After all, this level served as more of a tutorial for Hitman 2 than anything else, and the target didn't really have a path littered with accident opportunities that many of the other targets had. The only death that could be attributed to self-negligence, questionable as it is, was to pop a ruptured propane tank right at the spot where she would eventually go to suck down a nice smoky cancer stick before tucking in for the night.
Well done, 47. Now get off the property.
And with that done, I hopped on my boat and I rowed it all the way to the happiest place on earth. Miami, Florida, baby. Now, in order to get to my first target, Sierra Knox, and not kill her, I would need to first get her off the racetrack, and I knew just what to do. I choked out the delightful gentleman who was very quietly playing a nice game of Raid Shadow Legends in his van, and then I stole his clothes after dumping him unconscious in a box. Then, as a race marshal, I headed to the other race marshal manning the flag booth and offered him up some prime potassium on the floor. I waited until Sierra Knox came zooming around and I disqualified her for being alive. On my adventures around Miami, I happened to find some car keys in a puddle of blood next to a half-naked man. So, naturally, I stole them, and then I gave them to a giant flamingo who thanked me and who I then bananaed. Now, his car keys, much to my surprise, opened a van where he had some incriminating documents regarding Sierra Knox's public defecation incident. I told her bodyguard that I had evidence of her pooping in public and said I wanted to meet with her. Then I followed her down a dark alley so that I could be blackmailed, which is my favorite.
So here are the two possible outcomes of this meeting. One, you will leave this place and this country for good, and that will be the end of it. Everyone lives happily ever after. Two, you don't choose option one. Someone dies. Right here, right now. Which do you prefer?
Not much of a choice, is it?
No, not really. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Target down. Next up, Robert Knox.
Now, with Sierra knoxing herself out, I headed to Kronstadt Technologies to help her father, Robert, knox himself out too. Firstly, however, I needed to head into Robbo's office to steal the dingle-dongle that he'd very foolishly left upon his desk. And then, with said dingle-dongle, I hacked his mainframe, disabling his satellite dish and disrupting the illegal UFC pay-per-view stream he was watching without paying. Naturally, I used my high-level stealth skills to place even more bananas around his feet after he arrived, without ever getting noticed, because I am undeniably the stealthiest, most tacticalist testicle that ever did live. Banana peel placement is an art though, and requires hours upon hours of recalibration in order to get it just right. And even then, it only works 2% of the time, every time. What you can rely on pretty consistently though is the stupidity of the target's guards to come and also slip and stack it in a hilarious fashion, like this idiot right here. Or for them to just completely f**k up and do the job for you. And with that done, I packed up and got ready to head to my next destination, which just so happened to be a crack cocainous-filled jungle somewhere in South America. I decided to greet one of the locals with one of my big fat bananas. He was fine though, just having a little sleepy with his face firmly planted on his wheelbarrow. And then after having snuck into my first target's office, I used some of my cheeky coins to lure the guards and someone's grandma into the bathroom where I boffed them in the head with my potassium sticks. With everyone now bananaed up, I proceeded to follow my first target around the map, trying to identify potential hazards that she may have been unfortunate enough to walk by. Alas, there were none. So I did what any psychopath would have done, and I used my abundance of dollary-doos to lure my target down to the bayou. I then placed some cheeky bananas right along the edge of the water, and I waited for the magics to happen. Unfortunately, however, it didn't exactly happen the way I wanted it to, and there was a lot of trial, error, and hilarious glitching out that happened before she finally ended up stacking it close enough to the edge for one of her idiot bodyguards to accidentally nudge her right off into the piranha-filled waters below. Next up was old mate Rico Delgado, who, just like his girlfriend, Mrs. Drugs, didn't seem to walk past anything dangerous, making an accidental death equally as tricky and time-consuming as the last one. I did at some point lure him down to the hippo pit, thinking for some reason that the hippo would grab him and pull him in, but it seemed like I needed to be the one to push him for it to work, and that was against the rules of the Kill Nobody challenge. So I went back to the drawing board, and once again resorted to a whole lot of coin tossing and banana peel dropping until finally the game crapped itself and plopped him into the water for me.
You had an accident. I'll find help.
Rico Delgado has been eliminated.
It was now time for my final target on this mission, Jorge Masvidal, who very curiously seemed to spend a ton of time hanging around a guard who liked to smoke ciggies next to a ginormous oil barrel. So back to the oil drum I went, a bunch of coins in hand and a tremendously dangerous puddle of oil on the ground. Surely this is it, I thought to myself, chuckling like a maniac. But no, it seemed like Jorge's bodyguard would continue smoking literally forever while he was within standing distance of the barrel. And in order to make the oil go boom boom, he had to not just suck on the cancer sticks, but toss them directly into the puddle of oil on the ground. My life had just gotten complicated. And so, with the assistance of my bag of coins once more, I selflessly contributed to the betterment of a foreign economy, because I am a nice guy.
All targets neutralized. This should paralyze the cartel. Excellent work, 47. Now head for an exit.
Unfortunately, however, everyone seemed to accidentally blow themselves up, so I accidentally stole their attack chopper and flew to my next destination. Mumbai, India. What a place. A place so wonderful that they literally leave wheelbarrows full of gas tanks on every street corner. As far as I was concerned, they should have called this place heaven. I had 3 targets to take down, and to take down the first, I thought that a little bit of sewer play would be fun. So I chucked a nana in the river of human feces, and I lured a guard down into it so I could steal his feces-covered clothes. Feces. Then I yeeted some sick dude into the poop because I thought he was already sick and a face full of poo wouldn't make a difference. Unfortunately, my target saw this and ran away screaming. Eventually, however, he did end up at this spot where he had a nice convo with some Indian cougar in a purple sari. But separating them and also the weirdo that was just hanging around in the middle of everything proved to be quite difficult, even with the allure of the mighty US dollar. Still, just like every other tricky not my fault death in this video, through lots of trial and error, I made it work. Then, having separated my target from everyone else around him and being somewhat close to a location that happened to be on the edge of the water and without a safety railing, I got to work.
47. That's the maelstrom. You found him.
Now it was time to not deal with my second target, who had some shifty thing going on with the local laundromat. I snuck in through the window and boffed the worker and his foreman in the head with my big banana, and then got Bollywood ready.
Tell me more.
Well, the objective is...
Oh! Who would have the nerve?
It was then that I remembered that there were actually more interesting ways to have somebody else take down my targets in Mumbai for me. And so I rewound time, scaled the side of a building, and hoisted my way to the top where another assassin was planning on shooting the very same targets I was sent here to take down. He, however, didn't know how to adjust the scope on his rifle, so I did it for him because I'm a nice guy. Then I raced over to the building that his rifle was pointing at, hoisted myself through the window, and bopped the security guard and the painter in the face with my ginormous banana. I let my target know that I was ready to paint his portrait, and we headed downstairs together hand in hand, ready to make out. As I painted, I looked over in the distance and I could see my new friend getting ready to do my job for me. This was good, I thought, as I skillfully slapped paint all over the canvas.
Can you look up a bit? Thank you.
Once more, I spotted him in the distance and blew him a kiss for doing my job for me twice in one day. Absolute legend.
That is Vanya Shah taking care of 47.
Matter of fact, I was so stoked that I dropped an entire massive load of bananas all over the floor. I then hopped in a tuk-tuk, paid the guy $1 and asked him to drive me all the way to Whittleton Creek, USA. The perfect place to not kill anyone. It appeared that the Wilsons were having a barbecue party and that everyone was invited. Kind of like the party in my pants. Oh gosh. There was also a barbecue missing a propane tank. Propane, I thought to myself. Propane and fire. What a good combination. I like propane and fire. I like explosions. Boom, boom, yummy. And I just so happened to know that there was a propane tank over in the neighbor's yard. So I hopped the fence to grab it, but happened to unintentionally eavesdrop on a conversation between Janus the Anus's guards talking about his nurse chucking his ciggies out the window. I ran into a nearby bush and immediately recovered Janus the Anus's lost cigarettes. Then I climbed the drainage pipe of Anus's house to the second floor and let myself in. I immediately loosened the oxygen tank because I figured that an old dude on life support could always use more oxygen, and I gave him a new pack of ciggies because I figured that an old dude on life support could always use more cancer.
As old Trotsky said, just as a lamp.
Finally, an end to Janus.
One boom, however, was not enough, so I headed back to the barbecue, this time dressed as the Muffin Man, and offered Nolan Cassidy some potato chips that I didn't even poison. I just thought he looked hungry and would enjoy them. I then turned off the barbecue and noticed it getting a little bit low on propane, so I offered the barbecue guy a free refill. For some reason, however, he turned it back on with the propane tank literally on the grill. Rookie mistake.
is Nolan Cassidy taken care of?
Before leaving Whittleton Creek, however, I disguised myself as a garbo and rode that massive pile of trash on wheels off into the sunset and all the way to the Isle of Scale somewhere in Scotland. Now, getting to a secluded island in the middle of nowhere on an entirely different continent by garbage truck is no easy feat, but I managed and was also single and ready to mingle with my dingle. It was then, however, that I remembered that there was an optional quest on this map that required me to collect a bunch of commemorative tokens in order to apply for a membership to the Ark Society. So I ran around for a while collecting commemorative tokens like an absolute dickhead, and also remembered that I needed this guy's 90 in order to complete that mission. So I bananaed him and took it, as well as the commemorative tokens that he dropped on the floor.
Hey, loser. Yeah, you. How's the hunt? Well, feast your eyes on this. That's right. Hey, what gives? Give that back.
Now, the gist of this part of the mission is that if you answer falsely to a bunch of stupid questions, your target, who is this lady right here, somehow ends up electrocuting herself. So, I just answered all her questions like an idiot, which is what I do always anyway, and somehow she zapped herself to death. It was perfect.
One target down. Nice work, 47.
Looks like an accident.
Next up, Sophia Washington.
Next, I had to figure out a way to get to my second target, so I lured a guy called the Architect into the toilet and smashed a banana over his head before stealing the blueprints in his pocket and his clothes, pretending to be him. Masquerading as the Architect, I approached the Constant and told him that I had designed the poison chip that he had in his head, and that I could tell him how to deactivate it if he'd give me a hand. He invited me back to his secret sex lab for a chat, where I gave him the blueprints for the poison chip in his head and asked him about that. He then excused himself from our meeting, called up my target and told her that he knew she was trying to set him up and to meet him on top of the tower for a stern scolding. Busted! Now, having not killed anyone for the entirety of this video thus far, I was feeling pretty pro, and I thought that this time around I would flex my skill level by using one single banana instead of an entire plantation.
Both targets down. Impressive work, 47.
I am the best, I thought to myself as I hijacked a helicopter and flew to my next destination. A destination which realistically shouldn't even be a part of this video because now we're going into DLC territory and that's practically no man's land. But I am a tactical testicle, and so here we are. Welcome to Milton Bradley's Bank of New York. The first thing I did was head down into the safety deposit vault where I consented to a rough and aggressive deep frisking. And of course they uncovered nothing illegal because I am a nice guy and definitely not a criminal. I did, however, have 100 bananas cleverly hidden inside my butt. With that out of the way, I helped myself to the confidential information that was cleverly stashed inside this safety deposit box and handed it over to Ronald McDonald's wife, only to then realize that this mission story was completely pointless and would not accomplish what I had set out to do. It was then, however, that I looked up and remembered everything. I remembered that there was a bank heist that was about to go down and the criminals were plotting it in the public restroom. I had to stop them before it was too late, and I did so with my superpowers, which just so happened to be banana.
Don't hit me!
Regardless, Athena's office was at the top of the building, and I had made it there. But it was heavily guarded by elite guards whose only weakness was banana, which I had more than a few of. Thank goodness for that.
Do you see what that sound was, please?
Acknowledged.
I headed over to the ginormous clock window and pressed G, thinking that it said tampon when actually it said Tampa. I then patiently waited for tampon to happen. In the end, however, it wasn't quite tampon. But it would have to do. And now that that was done, it was time to walk all the way to to the Maldives. Now, you'd think that with all that walking, I would have lost a few pounds, but I actually put on about 80. And as my good fortune would have it, my very first target was literally in front of me as soon as I arrived on the island. She did look a little bit sweaty though, and I figured that she could probably use some electrolytes. Too much of it, however, and it can kill you. So, consume responsibly. Preferably not in banana peel form. Preferably not on the floor. Preferably not on a ledge. Preferably not next to the ocean.
2 targets remaining.
With my first target taken care of, within the first 30 seconds of entering the mission, I ran over to Eminem and tossed him $1, which seemed to excite him, so I dropped a few more. Now, this bought me enough time to run to the other side of the island and procure myself a wrench and a propane flask, which I used to loosen the knob thingies on some oxygen tanks and to just be an overall nuisance. Once again, however, I was amazed at the NPCs in Hitman's willingness to spark up a durry with a busted gas tank right in their face. But busted gas tank always go boom. And me like big boom boom. Having not eliminated every single one of my targets thus far, I now had one left to not eliminate also. And he lived inside this fancy tropical mansion, kitted out with a spa and everything. Unfortunately, however, it appeared to be busted, so I gave the incompetent spa technician some potassium, and then I fixed it myself. This caused fat Leonardo DiCaprio to rock up with his budgie smugglers on, looking like a piece of moldy bread.
Oh, that's it. Loosen it up.
Now, I did my best to tune out all the sus things he kept saying as he lay there spread-legged in the spa with his balls all up in my face, and I did what I do best. Banana.
That's all we need to do from here.
Then, having brought about Armageddon to Haven Island and ruining everyone's tropical vacation, I decided to steal a seaplane and fly away. After all, the Hitman 2 Kill Nobody challenge was complete and I needed to get to work on Hitman 2016's. Laters!